The Story of the Angry Man and the Buddha. It was a warm, quiet morning in the village of Sravasti, where the Buddha was teaching a group of his disciples. The sun shone gently through the trees, and the air was calm. The Buddha sat under a large banyan tree, surrounded by his followers, who listened intently to his words of wisdom. He was teaching them about patience, compassion, and how to cultivate a peaceful heart in the face of life's challenges. As the lesson was unfolding, a man from a nearby village, known for his temper and bitterness, approached the group. This man, whose name was Nanda, had heard of the Buddha's teachings and was not at all convinced by them. In fact, he despised the Buddha and his followers, believing that they were naive and weak for trying to live a life of peace. Nanda had always struggled with anger. His life was filled with resentment toward the world, toward people who had wronged him, toward his circumstances, and even toward himself. He had spent years nursing his grievances, and this bitterness had shaped the way he saw the world. When he heard about the Buddha's fame, he decided to pay a visit, but not with the intention of learning. He came to mock the Buddha, to expose what he saw as foolishness. As Nanda approached the Buddha and his disciples, he began shouting angrily, his voice harsh and filled with venom. "You, the so-called Buddha, are nothing but a fraud," he yelled. "You sit there pretending to be wise, while the world is filled with suffering. Your teachings are meaningless. Who are you to tell people to be peaceful when the world is so full of pain?" The disciples, startled by the sudden outburst, looked to the Buddha, expecting him to defend himself. But to their surprise, the Buddha remained silent, his face calm and untroubled. Nanda, seeing that the Buddha was not reacting, grew more furious. He advanced closer and began to hurl insults at the Buddha, calling him names, accusing him of leading people astray, and mocking his followers. The Buddha's disciples were uneasy, unsure of how to respond to the barrage of insults. Still, the Buddha sat motionless, with a serene and peaceful expression. His calmness in the face of such aggression was striking, and Nanda could not understand it. His anger only intensified. "Why do you not speak back?" he demanded, his voice trembling with rage. "Why do you sit there like a fool while I insult you?" The Buddha, whose eyes had been closed in quiet meditation, opened them slowly and turned to look at Nanda. His voice was soft but clear, carrying the weight of deep understanding. "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" he asked gently. Nanda was taken aback by the Buddha's calmness and the simplicity of the question. He was confused and slightly disoriented by the Buddha's response, but he replied anyway, though still angry. "If someone offers me a gift and I do not accept it, then the gift remains with the one who offered it." The Buddha smiled, his eyes radiating compassion. "In the same way," he said, "I refuse to accept your anger. You have offered it to me, but I do not take it. Your anger remains with you, not with me." For a moment, Nanda stood there in stunned silence. The Buddha's words seemed to penetrate deep into his heart. He had come to the Buddha full of hostility, hoping for a reaction, for a fight. But instead, he had encountered a peacefulness he had never known. The Buddha's refusal to engage with his anger left Nanda with nowhere to place it. His fury, which had once seemed so powerful, began to fade. The Buddha continued, his voice still calm. "Anger is like a heavy stone. You can choose to throw it at others, but it only burdens you, not them. If you throw a stone and it strikes a wall, it does not harm the wall. It only bruises your hand. Anger harms no one but the one who holds it." Nanda's anger began to melt away, replaced by a quiet sense of embarrassment. For the first time in his life, he saw that his anger was not a tool of strength, but a source of suffering. It was a burden he had carried for so long, and the Buddha's wisdom had shown him that he could choose to put it down. Nanda's heart softened. He bowed low before the Buddha, his voice quiet but sincere. "I am sorry for my behavior," he said. "I came here to mock you, but instead I have learned something far more important. My anger has only caused me pain, and I see now that it has no place in my life. I will try to let go of it The Buddha, ever compassionate, smiled and said, "The path to peace is not about avoiding anger, but about learning not to be controlled by it. It is not a matter of denying emotions, but understanding that you have the power to choose how to respond to them." From that day forward, Nanda became a devoted follower of the Buddha. He practiced patience and mindfulness, learning to observe his emotions without letting them dictate his actions. Whenever anger arose, he remembered the Buddha's teaching and made the conscious choice to release it before it could take root. Over time, he discovered that peace was not something to be sought outside himself, but something that could be cultivated from within. This story teaches us that we are not slaves to our emotions. While anger is a natural response, it does not define us. The Buddha's example shows us that we have the ability to choose how we respond to the challenges of life. By refusing to take on the anger of others, we protect our own peace and prevent ourselves from being consumed by negative emotions. True strength lies in our ability to remain calm and composed, to rise above the chaos of the world, and to cultivate inner peace.